Okay, I still haven't found a caravan I can't put a heater in, but this one would have to go real close. Not sure if we're going to proceed yet, but in this little camper, the only space available is in this box here. I drilled a pilot hole through here, which went straight into one of the chassis rails. This one sits just outside the railing, and I might even still need to go a bit wider, so I'm not actually sure if there's going to be enough room. I'll show you from underneath sort of what we're dealing with. So right now that would be the centre of a 100mm hole, and I'm just not sure if that's going to be enough to, you can see how close it is against that rail. Not sure that's going to be enough to drill the hole and trust that I'm going to be able to fit it. I have to have a think about it, see if there's any other options. Putting it here would also mean that the heater would only have 2 fixing points on the floor, because I'd need to cut off half the base just to fit it in. So that's the other factor to think of. I can certainly put it down with some Celastic, but ideally better to have 4 fixing points. Okay, so I had to come into the bench because if this is going to fit, I'm going to need to take this much off the mounting plate to make it fit up against the wall. We use Celastic all around here as well as some screws. It's a 90mm collar I've put on it, which is as tight as you can get, and that will fit. It's just a matter of getting it through that very, very, very small gap and making the air intake and the exhaust come out okay. I think it can be done, but it is super tight. All right, so that's the mounting plate gone. Let's see if we can go down, drill a hole and make it work. All right, I checked with the owner, explained that the worst case scenario is we put a section of the floor back in and cover it up, Celastic. He said go ahead, so I've drilled a hole slightly further towards the wall. You can see the big 6mm hole there, which is going to be my pilot hole. I'm going to drill a hole through there and hopefully it will be good. I think it will be, but let's see. Okay, and that is what we see. I reckon that will just work. Let's give it a try. Success. Very happy with that. That's a tight fit, but everything drops out neatly. And I just need to pull it back out now and put some Celastic on it and bolt it down. And that's what it looks like from underneath. What I was worried about was not being able to have enough room to bend the exhaust, but I've put on the different flexible one rather than the stock one that comes with it, and it just works perfectly. Glad I cut that section off the mounting board though, otherwise it wouldn't have worked. So there we go, that's about as tight as I've done. Back up top. Okay, so here's how we're going under here. This is one of the cheaper generic Chinese heaters, so there isn't quite as much exhaust hose or intake. So the exhaust blowing out this way, air intake right here. Just going to run the pump and put the pump on here and connect that up, and then we'll run it to the tank, which is going to be in the front boot. Alrighty, excuse the music, turn it down. That's where we're going. Let's put on a little bit more of an angle, and we're going to run the fuel line out to the front. Here is the fuel line running along there, under the chassis and up into the toolbox. Now we're going to go and connect it to the tank. Alright, so it's a plastic tank today. Most of these tanks come with this fuel nipple, which you put in at the bottom of the tank. But I suggest not doing that and throwing that away, and instead getting either a straw or a standpipe that you insert from the top of the tank. Reason being that if it's the lowest point, it could leak. If the fuel is coming out the highest point, very little chance that it's ever going to leak. So just a much safer option. One of those things I learnt early, invest in the standpipe rather than the fuel nipple. So there we go. The fuel straw installed. Now I'm just going to shake all the plastic out of the tank that would have come through with that those threads, and put some fuel in. All right, there we have the tank mounted and ready to go. So we can close the lid on that, no worries, easy accessibility. Just going to connect up that fuel hose to the bit at the top and suck a bit of fuel through. All right, so one of the big differences with the Chinese heaters is their parts are generally bit more flimsy. So what I've done is I've got some leftover AU focus cable which I've connected up to the Chinese power leads, which would not have made the battery. I'm going to run it under the caravan now through that hole and into the battery. And getting to the battery is a mission in itself. It is in there, not hard to connect onto, just got to crawl in there and get it up there. So not really what you want to be doing when you're 61 years old, but there you go, sometimes you just got to do it. So I'm just giving it a first run through. I don't think it's fired up, it's probably going to fail on this first attempt, and then it'll hopefully kick in on the second or the third. So there we go, little controller there, vent running out through there. Use one of the AU focus vents, I just think they're better vents, and a little bundle of wires tucked up in there. She's just burning up a bit of fuel at the moment and getting fine. So yes, you can put them in some very, very tight spaces, so long as you're willing to take the risk. Cut the hole and know what you're doing. There you go.